Okay, so I suppose I should start with introducing myself. So yeah, Elanor, and I'm at Fabric Ventures with Richard, so it's really nice to sit alongside Richard in this capacity and hopefully not grill him too much. Yeah. And I've been in VC for 6 years, 3 years in Web 2, and then 3 years at Fabric, wearing multiple hats. One hat I'm wearing at the moment is supporting on Residency, our UK accelerator program, with Coinbase, Base, Animoca, and Founders Factory. It's been amazing so far, and essentially we want to support 8 companies to go through the accelerator program that will start bums on seats in January, but applications are actually open now. So please do apply, Residency. Cash injection of £230,000 and a very tailored curriculum specifically focused on supporting Web3 and AI startups. So I just wanted to set the scene and the context there. And then I'm actually going to pass the first question over to Richard to ask, Richard, why have we decided to launch an accelerator in the first place, and sort of what's the origin of accelerators at Fabric, and why does this matter to you?
Sure, thanks, Eleanor. Is this working? Yeah, it sounds like it's working now. I'll try and keep it brief. I'm not always capable of doing that, but...
Oh, actually, introductions. I'm going back on that. Please, can we all do an introduction, and then back to you, Richard.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll go quickly then. I'm Keith Grose. I'm the UK CEO at Coinbase. I lead our business here across consumer and institutional, and excited to be a part of Residency.
Robby Young, Animoca Brands, and I oversee the investing side of our business.
Richard Muirhead, Fabric Ventures. I thought I was going to get the entire panel to myself there for a moment, but that seems not.
And I'm Damian. I help to run Founders Factory.
And back to me. Look, at the turn of the century, I was at a conference in Arizona, which was run by Esther Dyson, and I ended up having a margarita, non-alcoholic, of course, at the bar with Jim Breyer from Accel Partners. And he said, you know what, we're setting up Accel in Europe. And it was one of only 2 kind of great US firms that came across. It was Accel and Benchmark. And Benchmark became Balderson, which was doing incredibly well. And I then met with the team here in the UK, and they said that they would offer me the position of entrepreneur in residence. I believe I'm accurate in saying at that point in time, I was one of 2 EIRs, as they're called, in the whole of Europe. It's a much more common thing in Silicon Valley. And long story short, I thought this was fantastic. I thought it was a great privilege, obviously, to be sort of tapped on the shoulder like that, to come in and build a company from a blank sheet of paper with a kind of sort of fairly minimal sort of stipend to sort of cover costs. It also turned out to be kind of like quite challenging. I remember turning around at one point in time to some of the investment team at Accel and saying, okay, well, fine, you're paying me this money, so what do you expect me to do? And they literally said, well, you're the founder. You need to work that out. You tell us how this needs to work. So it was very open like that. And so I think I wanted to kind of, at Fabric, take people in and have them sit around the desk, which we've done over the last decade. We ran a couple of sort of scaled up programs out of Paris with First and under the brand Le Crypto Fellowship. And when the opportunity to do it again and do it better and do it with great partners like we got on the stage right now came about for the UK for the first time, and specifically again for the kind of Web3 crypto space, I jumped at it.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And Damian, it might be worth mentioning, you introducing what Founders Factory does, and ultimately, why have you decided to focus solely on accelerators, and how is Residency different as well?
Sure. So without getting too lofty about it, Founders Factory was formed on the central belief that some of the world's toughest challenges could be addressed by a combination of very hard-working entrepreneurs, innovative technology, and aligned incentives. And that was 10 years ago. Roll forward 10 years, we've invested in about 500 early-stage businesses, of which we've built 100 from scratch in the venture studio. These are Web 2 businesses, pretty much exclusively. And they're representative of most business models, most technologies, and certainly most sort of geographic ecosystems. You know, our model is powered by very large multinationals, folks like Rio Tinto, folks like Aviva, and many, many others. And as we looked at the previous wave, a lot of those large institutions became very interested in how Web3 was affecting either their consumers or their core business. And so started to make controlled investments in strategic spaces so that they could learn. And many of us at Founders Factory drank the Kool-Aid 5 years ago and were very, very sort of pro this area. I think now, the reason why this is such an important moment in time for me is that the rails exist, all the sort of infrastructure is there. There is real societal problems that are not being addressed by legacy institutions, and the hope is that this direction provides an interesting solution. You know, similarly, there feels like a bit of a vacuum of operators that can really lean in the intersection of how artificial intelligence and Web3, you know, the sort of coalescence of those two concepts. And so that's really the sort of interest that we have. You know, we think that you know, it's a unique moment in time, and frankly, I don't think you could find, you know, 3 other better partners to do this with, their, you know, understanding their networks and ecosystems, than these guys sitting next to me. And so that is why we're really excited about this and why we prioritize this against a bunch of other things that we could be doing. And yeah, I'm all for it. I think we're going to learn a huge amount.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. And so Keith, you're coming at it from a different angle from Coinbase. I'd love to know why Coinbase and Base wanted to get into this initiative, and also specifically why here in London. And then I'll obviously pass on to Robby as well.
Sure. Well, Coinbase has a long history in founders, entrepreneurship, and accelerators. Coinbase came out of an accelerator. We're one of the most acquisitive and founder-friendly companies out there, I would argue. I think 3 of our executive team came from founder acquisitions. We've done multiple acquisitions this year, including Echo just recently this week. We have sort of the growing of companies and incubating them and bringing them back inside the house as part of our DNA. And along with that, we're also proponents of building the Web3 ecosystem, right? And so we have Base, our own L2, one of the largest players and backers of the whole ecosystem overall. And so for us, this is really exciting for a few reasons. This is a way to give back and grow the next generation of founders that will hopefully, again, we're in this area of a rising tide lifts all ships. I think what's good for Web3 is good for Coinbase, is good for all the other companies in the ecosystem as well. And then secondly, I think why London? The UK is in this really interesting period for the next 12 months where there's crypto regulation coming out, stablecoin regulation coming out. We're seeing what's happening in the US and Europe and other markets. And at the same time, we also have an AI strategy in place as a government here. So it's the right time to do the intersection of these 2 technologies, to do it here in London and make sure the future of this technology is built here. And so I'm personally really excited, not just for Coinbase to be involved, but for us to be involved here so that we can help provide our expertise in crypto to hopefully 8 really exciting companies that are going to start building the future from the UK lens here.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that, and we've definitely been excited by the applications that have come through around the talent in the London ecosystem. I mean, Robby, you were thinking about doing a UK accelerator for a while when our paths crossed, Fabric's paths crossed with Animoca. I'd love to hear about, you know, why you think this was an interesting partnership and how all of you guys and all of us complement each other from a skill perspective.
Sure. So I think, you know, the genesis of this was actually Damian and I getting a little bit ahead of ourselves a few years ago, thinking about how we could lean into a lot of the experiences that Founders Factory has had for so many years, building great cohorts of accelerators. And I was trying to convince him that he should be all in on Web3, because that's what I do with pretty much everybody I meet. I'm like the meme with the Bitcoin guy and the girlfriend. And so in having that discussion, I said to him, look, you know, we've got this great ecosystem here in the UK, and I live here. We all live here. It would be nice to do something at home. Like, we've run accelerators in Hong Kong and in the Middle East and other places, but it would be great to do something here because as a resident of this city, I meet so many founders all the time, particularly because we came from the games industry, and London happens, and the UK happens to be like literally a global center of the games industry. If, for those of you who don't know, everything from Grand Theft Auto to Candy Crush, all made here. And so there are incredible entrepreneurs here, but the other thing, being new to living in Europe and the UK, is everybody complains how there's no capital. Like, bitch, bitch, bitch about no capital, seriously. And so that's my job as an investor. Like, I provide capital, but so many of the founders I meet aren't quite ready for capital yet. The business doesn't have quite the momentum, or they're still missing some certain pieces. And so I felt like this kind of accelerator is that missing link. It's how do you get them from the, oh, we got lots of good ingredients, but we don't quite have the recipe to make the dish yet, right? And if we can get them just to that next step, we have networks of not just our own funds, but lots of friends in the industry who would be happy to invest in these businesses if they were only just a little bit more well-developed. And so that's, I think, part of the genesis of this.
Yeah, I'd love to kind of build on that. I mean, I can remember coming out of university and trying to get started and immediately turning back to Cambridge and trying to work out, was there something that we could take from there, some people, whatever, to build the new thing. And it was a struggle, actually. And I was just sitting next to a professor of computer science from King's. I hope he doesn't mind me kind of quoting him, although we won't name him. We can probably work out who it is. And he's doing incredible work in a combination of virtually finance and AI and blockchain. But that whole process of funding PhD students and getting them to actually then start a company, so there's just a huge gap still that remains now. What are we, 30 years later? And again, going back to this question of why this is such a fertile ground for this innovation and also where we want to go. I mean, maybe there's someone on the stage who would like to be what I'm about to describe, but Revolut is this tremendous success already, and there are obviously, there's Robinhood, and there's Coinbase, and there's a few other people playing in this broad and expanding space. There's going to be a next Revolut, a next Coinbase that is going to be entirely on-chain, that is going to be at the intersection of the reinvention of money, the way we use our data because of AI, and indeed our identity. And so one thing I pitched to some part of the UK government was, do you want that on-chain Revolut to emerge from here somewhere, where we've got all these great universities, Cambridge, King's, UCL, Imperial, etc. We've got the financial technology industry, we've got the finance industry, we've got the ad industry, we've got all of this.
Yep.
Or do you want it to emerge somewhere else? And again, I would echo what you said, Robby, which is that I do think we can all bitch and moan about it a little bit, but I do think it's the case. Like, if there's a one surefire way of moving things forward, it's to get more capital into the system at every stage, and especially at this early stage. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, sort of where capital flows, innovation happens. And so I think we've spoken a lot about, why we've all partnered together, what the program looks like. In the audience today, Zebu's obviously renowned for a lot of builders and founders. Maybe we should talk about the types of projects that should be applying for the program and, what we're really looking at from a filtering perspective. Who would like to take that question?
I can just talk about a space that because I think maybe people feel like we're playing too much buzzword bingo with Web3 and AI at the same time, but there's a clear reason why these things overlap, right? We're heading to a world where web browsing, purchasing on e-commerce is going to be done by agents. You'll send an agent off to do what you need to do. How is that agent going to pay for things? How are they going to interact with each other in an online world? This is exactly what Web3 is made to solve. This is exactly what crypto is made to solve. If you have the keys to a wallet, policies and procedures around it, I think this is going to be part of the future of e-commerce. So this is just one example of where I think the intersection of Web3 and AI is going to develop, and it's still day one there. I've talked to a couple of founders building in that space, but I think nothing has reached scale yet, and you haven't even seen agentic commerce reach anywhere near scale yet. And so I'm really excited to see, hopefully, some founders in this batch working on that problem of how do you do agentic payments, and how do you use crypto to make it happen.
I think maybe if I can kind of give a broad sort of intersection, I think we should focus on what the UK does well. And actually what the UK does well is anything with finance, healthcare, security, AI, education, I mean, honestly, and then entertainment, whether that's film, feature film, music, or games. All of these things, actually, the UK exports dramatically across all traditional sectors, and so there's no reason we shouldn't be tokenizing all of it.
Yeah.
And I guess the summary to all of that is that these are real utility, really valuable products and services and technologies that are being created that can find a very, very large market and scale as a function of capital. And so that is my focus is certainly looking at it from that lens, and then bringing in large institutions in order to support these businesses in some way and sort of promote the learning agenda. And I think that's the stuff that is getting us very, very excited about this.
Yeah. So we've focused a lot on sectors, and I agree with all of those. But what about the people? Richard, maybe you want to touch on, we speak a lot about Fabric around what really makes a great founder, the soft characteristics that ultimately should never be underestimated. Richard, in your time in venture, what are some of the characteristics that we look for in founders?
A whole series of dichotomies, I think, is what you kind of tend to look for. By which I mean, starting with, one of the sort of my favorite mantras I've taken on board is that, you should think very big. You've got to think venture scale, but start extremely small and act fast. And trying to kind of actually the sort of trichotomy, maybe even if you're doing all of those and getting that from one person is very hard. Somehow you want to have someone who's got endless grit, relentless grit, and almost kind of verging on the recklessness, and they kind of I would say, but at the same time knows how to stop and listen and take counsel from other people. So they very much know their own mind, but also will take counsel. So I think there's a whole series of those different balances, and I think especially at this stage we're talking about there are opportunities in the very first step, which is actually hearing of the program. Maybe finding out who do you know that is connected with people in the program. That's not only allowed, but encouraged, because that reference checking, that entrepreneurial effort that you put in counts for something. And then what is articulated in the application, well thought through, and then what is on the kind of in the video. Still, all of that actually it's not like that is what you're going to build and you're being judged on whether or not that is the right or wrong thing, because to be frank, nobody can know, least of all the investor. All of that is a kind of stage upon which to perform to demonstrate that you and the other people involved in the project are the right people to back. So that's the way I'd sort of think about it.
I'm glad you said think big, act small, move fast, because that's one of Founders Factory's values. And
There you go.
and I would maybe add to that by saying the best founders that we meet are those that make the improbable sound inevitable. And the ability to do that, when you see it. You really know when you're sort of on the receiving end of that.
Yeah, it's like founders who know like a secret from the future. Can't remember whether that was Bill Gurley or one of the other kind of pontificators over in the US, but that's key to be able to kind of have that clarity of thinking, and then have the guts and grit to act on it in the very short term.
Yeah, and I know Base thinks that way as well in terms of the types of founders that they're trying to bring onto the Base ecosystem. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more around that actually as well, because I guess it's a similar type of founder profile.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I guess for those, hopefully we're at a Web3 conference. Folks have heard of Base, but that's an L2 on Ethereum that Coinbase is back. That's now moving towards being fully decentralized, and it's trying to be a place where people can build the future of all sorts of different industries in a decentralized way. And I hope we'll see some of those type of founders in this residency, in this accelerator, building some really exciting companies here. Because I'll go back to what Richard and Damian, I'm sure Robby would agree with, which is you do need to move fast if you're a founder, because almost inevitably, your original idea is not going to be what ends up being the big business at the end of the day. You will grow and evolve through the course of growing up as a business. And so you have to have, one, that grit, but you also have to have that vision, because where things are going always develop faster than you think. And I think that's part of the story of Base, right? I don't think Coinbase set out to have an L2, and now we have 5 billion TVL in Base, and it's growing to be one of the biggest ecosystems around Web3 in the whole world. And I think that came because a lot of founders came and helped, and a lot of community building happened. And I hope that that's the type of thing that Residency builds here, is that we get some great founders applying who are really full of grit, who are also going to bring a community with them. And this is something that can happen year after year and develop, again, that energy and that ecosystem here in London as well.
To build on actually your point, Keith, about some of the problems that are not solved about, say, within agentic commerce, and connect that back to kind of like the concept of an on-chain Revolut. I think I want to clarify from my perspective that, yeah, sure, we want folks who might come in and say, I want to build a consumer-facing app, and I can see how if I gamify it to the next level, maybe even about, for example, regulatory disclosures, to really, that's an important part of making sure that we're responsible and therefore compatible with the kind of mainstream world in terms of, building out these new financial apps, that could be a thing, and doing that well. But also, similarly, down at that level of the transactions between agents, we need to be able to reinvent the concept of kind of know your customer, know your business, for know your agent and know your transaction. And it's got elements of identity built into that. So doing that in a way that works for the regulators, works for governments, but also works for people's sort of sovereign, control of their own privacy is pretty important as well. That's a technical problem. So this is deep tech aspects that doesn't need to be about one specific app. It can be a horizontal capability, a platform, a network, or even a more discrete technology. That's also good. Come in and let's talk about that element. So I think both ends of the spectrum, I think we would welcome.
Hopefully a lot of your ears are pricking and you're thinking by now, I might apply to this, but I think we should go into also, Richard's brainstorming some ideas, particularly on Web3 AI there and sort of infrastructure. This program is very collaborative. It's really going to hold forums to be able to have these discussions, go deeper and support each other. And it's really a peer-to-peer learning as well. But Damian, so the curriculum is obviously very focused towards Web3 founders. We were, on the tokenomics side, that's something that Animoca is very much known for. Do you want maybe talk about some of the workshops you've run in the past that will be embodied into the curriculum?
Sure. I think one of the things, so we've run accelerators in the past and mixed, a little bit of in-person and online and stuff like that. And I think one of the things that we wanted to achieve here was to actually have kind of a physical as well as spiritual home for the program here in London, because we think that actually the universe of founders is big enough that actually we can build a cohort out of people who are, if not local, nearby. We'll give France a chance as well, maybe. But relatively close so that they can participate in in-person events. Because I think we get a lot out of this, and we have the chance to do things like, I said very early on, we, by coincidence, happen to have built much of our tokenomics team here in London, because we recruited great people from all the great universities around the area to join the team. So that's a resource that we can draw on to run, full-day workshops and office hours for founders who need that support in designing and architecting their token economies. And I have a whole team here that can help them with that. And I think that's part of the process of educating founders and helping them get to that next step where we have a resource we can contribute. And I think that's the same for all of the panelists here, that each of our organizations has those resources that they contribute.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all offering sort of mentorship, hands-on, roll-up-your-sleeve advice. Damian, you've done a lot of this, and we're also, we've got a demo day as well, which is exciting, gives you the opportunity to get in front of a lot of other investors and fundraising support. But I don't know, yeah?
I was just going to build on the point about, absolutely, the team that is behind the folks on this stage are going to be able to kind of pile in on a whole range of topics, over each of the kind of 16 weeks. And so there's kind of master classes each week. There may well be kind of a little bit, think of it as sort of celebrity firesides on top of that. this is not necessarily a kind of promise, but if you take as a sample, we had a little launch dinner kind of last night, and there are folks from Binance there, representatives of Ethereum Foundation. We've got great projects like Lens and Aave, and companies like Wintermute, and obviously solid huge branches of Coinbase here. The idea is that we're kind of going to be able to connect the founders on this program with each other, with everybody, the teams on this stage, and the kind of broader community within the UK and beyond that, which was maybe where you were going with a little bit with the demo day. The idea is to have the demo day in.
Well, I don't know. Can't announce it
Oh.
quite yet. But I also...
In April.
What a
Yeah,
tease.
Damien told me not to.
Somewhere in the world.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I also wondered if there are any founders in the audience, and if there's a microphone, Zebu Live, looking at you, who might want to ask questions around sort of applications or what we're looking for, and more on the curriculum, because I really want this panel to be for you guys to understand more about this accelerator. So I wanted to open up to the floor just to see if there are any questions. Can we have a microphone, please?
And in the meantime, I might add also that we obviously have big networks of existing portfolio companies and founders that we've worked with across Web3, but also don't underestimate the Founders Factory contribution, because something that's very important to a lot of Web3 founders is how do they interface and interact with Web2 businesses as well. And so Damian and his team represent that interface to thousands, literally thousands of founders they've worked with over the last decade of Web2 who could represent a client base, a partner base, et cetera, for other Web3
There's
businesses.
an implicit acknowledgement there that we're moving out of the crypto anarchist phase and into the mainstream, which is about time.
Agreed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Elanor, you suggested whether anyone from the audience has any questions with regards to application and the program. So yes, I have questions about that. If you can answer your own question, would be great.
So as in, like, what is the process?
Yeah, how do you apply? When do you apply? What's the curriculum? How early stage
So
of the company?
you go to residency.xyz, with the first E is a 3.
Because it's Web3, don't forget.
And that has all the information you need to know, but very broadly, there is an application form on there. That's the first stage in the journey. Then we'll review that. We'll ask you to submit, alongside this application, a short Loom, video recording of your pitch. We'll go through a couple of stages where you get to know us a little bit better, we get to know you a little bit better, and then we sort of bring down the volume of applications to a short list, and we'll convene. We sort of cut off the applications towards the end of November. We'll convene a group which will hear a live pitch from the founders, and we'll make our decision as we get into the back half of December. The program will start in January. It'll run for 16 weeks, and it is, as the name may suggest, hopefully a residential program. So that means everyone in the same place, getting to know each other, getting to know us, and goes through a logical arc with all the key fundamental elements that are important to know to prepare companies for a meaningful seed round or Series A round. And a lot of that work will be on preparing for that. A lot of it will be on delivering a product as quickly as possible, whether that's a B2B enterprise product or whether that is a consumer-focused product, and getting things out there and starting to learn about the interaction that real people have, real customers have with that product, service, tool, or whatever it might be.
Residency.xyz, just
R3Residency.xyz.
R3Residency.xyz. And is it only open for British citizens?
You can be a citizen of anywhere. All we ask,
Or nowhere.
all we ask is that you can make best efforts to get to London for as much of that duration of the 16 weeks as possible. That's how we think.
Cool, great initiative.
Thank you. Love the plugin as well. Over here. Sorry, I'm making you run around, Ross. Either. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Great talk. I have two questions. I checked the website and it said only 8 teams. Is that a hard cap? And my second question is, what if teams have already raised some funds already? Do you have a limit or anything like that?
We're trying to get in as early as possible. So we want teams as close to formation as we possibly can. It's not a deal breaker if they've already raised capital, but we want to get there as early as possible in order to help shape and form the strategy, the fundraising narrative, and so on. And your first question?
18.
8, yes. So this is a hard cap at 8. We're trying to create. We're running this as a proof of concept cohort. So this is the first time that the 4 organizations here have come together to deliver this. We are all laser focused on delivering huge amounts of value to each founder. We're going to look at this and review this, and hopefully we'll be able to replicate this structure many times in many places in the future. But it all starts with this first impactful 8, and hopefully we'll be coming back to places like this in years to come and pointing to this cohort and saying, these are the category-defining companies that now we're all celebrating.
Yeah. What I would say on that hard 8 is obviously it is competitive, but we're sharing all applications with Base. They also have grant programs. You never know where your application is going to go. Even if it's not going to this program, it might lead to other paths. So definitely do apply. There's lots of opportunities that we're going to try facilitate.
Exactly. You end up in the networks here, but also, and the flip side of that, importantly, is 8 is a number that allows it to be very intense as a program. We obviously don't want to scale it too much, given that everything that is going on. I misheard you originally and thought you said that it's only for people over 18. And I did wonder, actually, whether if you were 16, you could apply. I think we don't necessarily have a restriction on that. I mean, there's some prodigies that clearly come.
I've got a 10-year-old at home who I might exercise some excellent nepotism.
I took my 10 and 12-year-old to the launch dinner last night, actually. Got them to brush up on their Python. So that may be possible. And on the point to build and to emphasize the point that Damian made, don't be put off necessarily if you've already had some funding. Try and convince us that the trade-off between ownership, impact, and what you've already achieved and the rest of it is going to work somehow. I mean, we're not going to just look and go, oh, forget about it. It all depends on exactly what comes across.
So you had a question.
Hey. Sorry, I'm Dane Hammer, co-founder, engineer and CEO at Way AI. We've built agentic infrastructure for on-chain settlement. We've scaled it to the point now where we're being lured to Palo Alto or Silicon Valley. So my question is, because also the time in which the program kicks off is actually during the time which I was going to go over in December and potentially stay. So my question is, what can this program offer me as a founder based in London versus actually going to Silicon Valley?
Okay, so this is a Silicon Valley versus London question as well. Love it. Juicy.
None of us are going to, well, we might be there a little bit, but we will be in London for the first 4 months of next year. And as will the teams that are sort of standing behind us. And so, that's where we're going to be. I think there's a huge amount of valuable ecosystems and so on in Silicon Valley, but this is very much a UK-centric thing. And I would build the case for staying in the UK if you're selected to come onto this program. I think that we can affect some really, having looked across the portfolio of all the times that when we've helped early stage companies, we can have transformative impact. And that's normally just Founders Factory plus one other corporate. We've got all of the guys here. I think that we can have meaningful changes in early stage companies' trajectory.
Well, and also one of the key differences between the two markets tends to be human resources, because it's been a well-known fact since Web 2 days that great human resources in tech, developer talent, engineering talent, tends to be less expensive here and in Europe than it is in California. And so that's a big consideration as you're scaling your business.
And the last thing I would offer is quality over quantity. I think if you have 8 teams, it's really hands-on. You get to spend a lot of time. You get a lot of mentorship. If you look at the cohort sizes of some other accelerators, I think you have to question, what am I getting out of that as well, and make the right choice for your company.
I just want to say thank you so much to everyone sitting here. So please, round of applause to Keith, Robby, Richard, and Damian. Thank you.